What is going on, everyone? I am Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, coming to you guys with another review, and for today I'll be reviewing the Strike Suit Zero, which came out on January 23rd, 2013. Now, Strike Suit Zero is a story-driven single-player game where you assume the role of a fighter pilot for the United Nations of Earth, in this case UNE for short. In a massive war against the combined forces of the space colonies, the game is designed so that the battles do not revolve entirely around you. A complete battle simulation between allied and enemy forces will be going on in the background while you perform specific objectives, giving the impression that your role is only a small part of a much larger conflict. Now, as for the aircrafts, of course, you could expect there to be different type of aircrafts to play as, right? So as for the aircrafts, there are a total of 4 playable aircrafts. There's the Interceptor, Fighter, Bombers, and the Strike Suit itself. Now, as for the weapons themselves, there is a wide variety of weapons you can choose from within the game. Now, you don't have like a huge selection, but you do have a wide variety. And of course, as you progress through the game, you'll be able to unlock new weapons. And of course, when you complete optional objectives, you'll be able to acquire upgrades. So basically, you're able to customize your own ship with different weapons and of course upgrades, such as upgrading the handling, your armor, your shield, and things like that. So weapons there include weapons such as the plasma cannons, machine guns, lasers, unguided rockets, and various type of missiles. As for the missiles, you got some interesting names here. You got the fire and forgot missiles, semi-active homing missiles, which that one's my personal favorite, swarm missiles, anti-capital ship missiles, and of course the unguided rocket pods, which is another one of my favorite weapons to use in the game, just watching all the rockets fire. But anyways, there's also a wide variety of enemy units. Now, there's not like a huge selection of different enemy ships, but the enemies do have some interesting ships out there. They of course have the interceptors, fighters, heavy fighters, missile armed fighters, as well as large ships including the corvettes, frigates, and of course the cruisers. And of course, occasionally they're going to have the space stations and stationary weapons on platforms that will be present within the game, and of course on most of the missions. Not all of them, but most of the missions. Now let me go ahead and go over what I like about the game and what I dislike about the game. So one of the first things I really enjoyed about the game is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was just beautiful to listen to. I just had a nice relaxing time listening to the soundtrack while engaging enemy aircrafts. Now, the soundtrack was developed by Paul Rusky, which is the composer of the original Homeworld soundtrack. So like I said, one of the top things I love is the soundtrack for sure. And to the point where I actually went to the options of the game itself, tuned down all the audio, basically, the combat audio and all that, and just had the music pumped up to the max. So that's what I really loved. Another thing I love too is the controls. The controls are real simple and easy to learn, especially if you never played a fight simulation type of game before, or in this case a space combat simulator. If you never played one before, the controls are real easy to learn, because this was my first time playing a space combat simulator. And in the beginning of the game, you actually go through basically a tutorial. Now, it wasn't like a quick tutorial just trying to rush you into the game. It was basically a nice legit tutorial from start to finish, giving you the basics, such as being able to control your ship, how to do combat maneuvers, and switch weapons and fire your missiles and all that fun stuff. So for the controls, you have actually 3 different options you could choose from. You could go from the the basic keyboard and mouse, or you could choose a gamepad, or my personal favorite, which is the keyboard and joystick. I actually enjoy that preference a little bit better because I just felt the ship was a lot more enjoyable to fly around using a joystick. So if you have a joystick lying around, I definitely highly recommend you use a joystick with this game. Or like I said, you could use the mouse and keyboard or gamepad. The other thing I really enjoyed about the game is the visuals. The visuals of this game are beautiful to look at, from the details of the aircrafts themselves, even the strike suit, to the enemy cruisers and the enemy stations, and of course the background as well, such as the different planets and the stars and all that. It literally felt like you were in space. It didn't feel cheaped out at all. I mean, it looked great. Just like overall, like I said, the visuals are great. I'm not sure how much to go into detail about that, but like I said, it's not half-assed looking. Just the visuals look really good to look at, to the point where half the time I was just cruising around in my ship, just admiring all the background that's going on, all the action. And actually, that's another thing I really enjoyed about the game. What I loved about the game too is that it is action-packed from start to finish. Now, this game is about I think it took me about 8 hours to complete, so it's about 8 to 10 hours game depending on what kind of player you are. And since I am new to this player, it actually took me around 10 hours to complete. And like I said, it is action-packed from start to finish. Now in the very beginning of the game is the basic tutorial stuff where you're kind of learning how to play, so that you're not going to get too much action, but you get like a little bit of action towards the end of that tutorial. But once you start mission 2 on up, it's just filled with action left and right. You have like hundreds of enemy ships on screen, you got enemy cruisers, you got missiles just firing everywhere. You got missiles, beams, machine guns just going all crazy on the game to the point where you're dodging stuff from left and right, and just all that fun stuff. Like I said, it is action packed. That's what I really loved about the game. Another thing I really enjoyed is the strike suit itself. Like I said, you have 4 different ships you could choose from, going from bombers to the strike suit, and then of course the interceptor. But once you get the strike suit, that's the main thing you're going to want to use, because what's cool about the strike suit, the reason it's called strike suit is because it goes into this, I believe it's called the strike mode, where basically from changes where you're just a basic ship to you transform into a mech itself. It's like instantly transform into a mech. And what's cool about it is that you're able to maneuver like left and right really quickly, but you don't have much maneuver, just like your basic ship. You don't have much maneuver, but you're able to go left and right. But the main thing about the mech suit itself is the amount of damage it can do. Now let's say, for example, there's about 15 enemy fighters on screen, and then you hit the missile lock-on button. You're able to lock on to multiple enemies at a time, launch the barrage of missiles. I mean, when you first see the barrage of missiles, your jaw drops. I mean, my jaw dropped seeing all that missile going on in action, because like I said, the visuals looked great, to the point where you're seeing enemy ships blowing left and right. I mean, that's how freaking cool it was. So now you know what I like about the game. Like I said, it has a nice lengthy campaign, a total of 13 missions, which will take you around 8 to 10 hours depending on the type of player you are. The other thing I really enjoyed was the music, the visuals, and of course that it's action-packed, and of course the controls were easy to use, learn, and understand. Now as for the negative of the game, I only have 2 negatives. One is just a minor negative, and the other one is probably the major negative I have about the game. So the first one, which is a minor negative, it's not like that big of a deal, but I mean, it has no multiplayer, which I think would have been cool to see multiplayer in this type of game, especially with what I've seen already in the game. Like I said, it's action-packed. It would be cool to actually see some like multiplayer, you know, like maybe some co-op missions or something like that, you know, be able to have a friend jump in and help you out in each of the missions, which I think would have been cool. Or of course maybe, you know, go head to head with, you know, you against another player, in this case a team of however many and another team of however many going against each other, and that you all have your own battle cruisers or even a space station or something like that. I mean, I think that would have been cool to see in the game, but like I said, that's the only minor negative, but it's just my personal opinion, what I would love to have seen, especially like maybe a co-op portion. I've been cool to be able to play a co-op with a friend, especially on some of the tougher missions. Now the major gripe I have with the game, to be honest, is only one thing, and that is the checkpoint system. Now the checkpoint system in this game, I gotta say, has probably pissed me off so much, to the point where I turned off the game quite a few times. Not to the point where I stopped playing the game, but just the point where I turned it off and had to take about an hour or 2 hour break just to kind of get my anger out of the way. You know, I'm going to go ahead and give you an example of a checkpoint. You know, one of the ones that pissed me off, it was mission 4, because in the game you jump through different objectives and sometimes you're transporting to another area, and I believe it's towards the end of mission 4, or when you first start off you have an option to try to protect a cruiser. It was only optional, because you know, if you miss an opportunity for an optional, it's no big deal as long as you complete the main objectives. So I mean, obviously there's no way I was going to save the cruiser, but that's not the issue. The issue was, okay, I had to destroy like 3 beam turrets and like 6 of these other turrets on this the cruiser, to the point where after you do that there will be a little cutscene where Team 2 comes in, basically bombers, to finish off the cruiser, right? So just destroying all these turrets took me about, you know, 7 to 8 minutes, because like I said, I'm pretty new to this type of game, so you know, it took me a while to achieve that goal, just you know, doing one of the main objectives. So after destroying all the objectives, like I said, it took me about 7 to 8 minutes. Then the little cutscene kicks in where the bombers arrive. It's like, okay, great, now time to finish up the mission, to the point where I guess I didn't defend the bombers, and the bombers got destroyed, to the point where it's like, okay, restart the last checkpoint, and basically from that point, once I clicked restart last checkpoint, I had to start that whole section over. Not the whole chapter 4, but just that main area, the third part of chapter 4. I had to start that whole section over to the point where I have the option to defend the cruiser and to destroy all the turrets in the game, which kind of pissed me off because it took me about 3 or 4 tries just to try to pass that. So repeating the same portion, which took me about, like I said, I think the fastest I got it was like 5 minutes, but still like 5 to 8 minutes just completing that portion over and over again just to where I complete the objective. That kind of pissed me off. It would have been nice to have a better checkpoint system to once the bombers come to have a checkpoint there, so if I fail that portion then I could just start over when the bombers appear instead of restarting that whole section over. But that's the only major gripe I have with the game. But other than that, it is a ton of fun. I would highly recommend it. You could buy it on Steam. I think it goes for about $15 to $20 if I remember correctly. But like overall, it is a ton of fun. Just the checkpoint system kind of sucks, and of course no multiplayer, which that one's only a minor gripe. But other than that, great visuals. The soundtrack is amazing. A total of 13 missions, 4 ships to select, a wide variety of weapons to choose from, and of course a wide variety of enemies to crush. So anyways, I'll be giving the Strike Suit Zero a total of 8 out of 10. If you guys want to check out the walkthrough, you can check on over at Gamerfuzion.com. Anyways, that's it for this video. You guys have a great day.